And this is a topic that we struggle about whether or not we want to speak about this, but it's the biggest gaming topic on the net, and it has been for a good week and a half, not 2 weeks. And it's the Zoe Quinn scandal / controversy, if you want to call it that, and her relationship with Nathan Grayson, a writer at Kotaku.
I said you were leading in on this.
Oh, you did? I thought you were leading in. Okay, so basically, what came out, and we're going to try to deal with, this is what we're trying to deal with. We're trying to deal with what's factual. We discussed this. We're going to try not to throw out too many allegations besides what's out there. But what's confirmed is that, at least by early April, confirmed by Stephen Totilo of Kotaku, who's the editor, is that Zoe Quinn, who's an independent game maker, she's most known for Depression Quest, which is a text-based game, which I believe is on Steam, recently on Steam. She had, or still has, a relationship with Nathan Grayson, who was a writer on Rock, Paper, Scissors, which I believe was an indie game review site.
It was PC game review.
Just PC gaming? Okay. And then also on Kotaku. And so, because the ex-boyfriend revealed that she cheated on him with people, including Nathan Grayson. I want to focus on him because this is what I believe what the real issue is to me and a lot of people. So because of that, Stephen Totilo was forced to come out and say, now this is another thing we can talk about. He was forced to come out and say, did not know about the relationship in April. I do not believe that there was anything positive that Nathan Grayson wrote about Zoe Quinn or Depression Quest when they had a relationship. Therefore, I think everything's kosher. So people are still upset because it looks like there's impropriety here. And when you talk about journalism and media and your topics, especially in, I guess you can say, professional media, even though sites like CNN are now a rag, MSNBC and Fox News, it's more about clicks versus actually reporting anything. When things look improper, people assume the worst. And a rule of thumb usually in journalism is that as soon as it appears bad, everything sort of just, it basically falls away. And any sort of standards or any sort of ethicality in terms of your reporting. And so that's, to me, why a lot of people are upset about this. Because usually when things like this happen, for example, I believe there was a reporter who I was talking to that told me that before they were going to be working on something that had to do or was entering a relationship with someone that was working for something with Obama's campaign at some point. So they recused themselves from doing any reporting at all for a year at that point. You can say now that this is video games, this isn't politics. There's different sort of continuums, and this isn't as important in the grand scheme of things. But some would argue, and I'm more on this side, that ethics and standards matter no matter what you're reporting. You have to have disclosure, you have to have transparency. So I think less of people would have a problem with this. At least to me, might say that there are extremists in any case, any side. But if this was sort of disclosed, or a proper reporter, or if you want to call him blogger, would have said to the editor, as soon as the relationship happened, hey, this is someone that I have written about recently, which we'll get into. I might write about in the future. I'm going to disclose this relationship. And any major news organization, that's what would be required. If you worked at the Washington Post, New York Times, USA Today, if you entered any sort of relationship with anyone in any realm that you were close to dealing with, you'd have to disclose that. You'd have to. Because situations can come up where it can be looked at as either favoritism, or it can look at as is there any sort of taint in this reporting going on, taint of it? So that's what happens. When that doesn't happen, when issues come out, if the editor doesn't find out about it, usually the editor will just go and fire that person because it looks bad for the entire paper and it looks bad for any sort of reporting standards. We can agree on that point. Now, of course, when issues like this come up, though, you unfortunately have people that on the fringe that look at it as this is their sort of cause to go after someone entirely. And that's where the bad stuff happens. That's where you get things like physical threats on people, death threats. And of course, that's absolute bullshit. You never want to threaten someone over something like that, of course. And any normal person would never do that. The problem then is that people confuse two separate issues and try to obfuscate, is that the word? The entire issue, because you have assholes doing one thing versus what other people feel is the real issue. Then it becomes twisted, and then no one knows at the end of the day what the hell they're even talking about anymore. And that's probably where you're at right now.
Here's the deal. Here's kind of my thinking on it. The initial allegation that I'm on the opposite side here. While I agree that there needs to be ethics in reporting, and there needs to be standards, and while I agree with certain things that you have said, like if you are romantically involved in someone, you need to remove yourself from that sort of reporting. It is not the fringe that made threats. It was a scorned boyfriend who used 4chan as his own personal army and Twitter as his own personal army to threaten, harass, humiliate, post nude photos of her online, threaten her with rape, threaten her with death. She can't go home. This is not how you start a conversation about journalism ethics in video games.
Okay.
That's bullshit. And that's where I have to disagree. Yes, I agree that journalism in video games has always been a topic. It always has. It's always been a problem. Jeff Keighley had to deal with it with the Doritos Gate, okay? And that, to me, was a far more important topic. One that had to do with advertising creeping into games and swaying what happens, what gets pushed on sites. The fact of the matter is there was no review for Depression Quest. Nothing has been proven to have been gotten from Zoe Quinn doing this. And furthermore, why are we discussing someone's personal sex life online? Because a scorned ex-boyfriend decided he wasn't doing this to blow the top off of a journalism scandal, because if this is blowing the top off a journalism scandal, this is fucking bullshit. This is a scandal? This is nothing. I mean, it really is. I mean, there's no proof that she got any extra message. I'm not going to use this paper-thin theory that it's all about journalism from these fucking black hats when it's not. This is their excuse for continuing a crusade against a woman that they don't like. And this is not the first time Zoe Quinn has been targeted. This is not the first time her information has been leaked. This is not the first time that she has been threatened with rape, violence, and death. When she simply even had the balls to release a game called Depression Quest, she was also threatened. People go after her at any given chance. And here's something that might upset some listeners. I'm not even sure how well I would get along with Zoe Quinn. I'm not. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. But it doesn't fucking matter if I would get along with her. My problem is that people's first resort upon hearing this was to harass her to the point where she had to leave her home in fear for her life. Over a relationship that she started in a small cliquish community. Now, I don't approve of I don't like the cliquish community, the indie game community, but when you are constantly working game jams with each other, when you are constantly seeing people at the same places, it's totally normal to form these relationships.
You've actually broadened the scope of what I thought you would keep the scope more narrow to this. So let's back up. Before we get in trouble for saying things that we might get in trouble for, I do not believe, from what I've seen, that the boyfriend was behind any of the people going after her for death threats or things like that. I do not believe I've seen any of that.
You have to understand that this guy is part of the internet. He's seen what's happened to his girlfriend. He knows that releasing a huge story on his blog is going to target her. There's no way to deny that.
So, okay, you're saying
there's no way.
You're saying at least it's an indirect sort of thing, but not directly, because I haven't seen any evidence that was direct. Okay, I'm going to say this. The reason I think there's been a visceral reaction to this, I think because you brought up the Jeff Keighley Gate thing, which we've seen the picture of him with Doritos and that from a few years back, is that we've always talked about the journalistic integrity or lack thereof in gaming. This is it thrown in people's face. Now, before you say there is no positive press given, there's positive press that you can gain from favor, and there's lack of negative press that you can get. And the fact of the matter is, there's actually been both. We spoke about the Game Jam debacle back in it was late March. Yeah. We spoke about it in early April. One of the articles was written by Nathan Grayson on March 31st. In that article, Zoe was the centerpiece of the article. Now, she was the one that was involved with some of the controversy, obviously, with Maddie Lasham, and also with JonTron, and then arguing. In that article, it was revealed, there was a soliloquy at the end about how Game Jam is important, brings us all together, blah, blah, blah. She revealed that she was setting up Rebel Jam, which is going to be her version of the game jam. And this is all verifiable. She set up a website, she set up a PayPal account on March 31st, which was the same day that the article Nathan wrote came out on Kotaku. Now, if you're telling me that it's a total coincidence that the website was set up, the PayPal account funneling her money was set up for another game jam, the same exact day that Nathan Grayson, her friend at this point, soon to be in a relationship, wrote the article and then pushed her Rebel Jam in the article, you're saying that's a total coincidence? I don't see it. Now, I'm not saying this is a huge thing that's hugely sort of okay. This is not the most important thing ever, but obviously there's some thing going on there.
I'm gonna have to say that it is coincidental, and quite simply, it's because of this. That was not the article that blew the top off of the Game Jam thing. The article that blew the top off the Game Jam thing, the one that we referenced the most, was the one by Jared Rosen at Indie Static, and Zoe Quinn was the central figure in that one too. Why? Because she's upfront, she's outgoing, she's forward, and she's going to do a lot of talking. This article was also posted on March 31st. Mm-hmm. Why were these posted on March 31st? Because that's when the news broke. And even in this one, she talks about how she wants to set up a more positive game jam. Yes.
So well, do you think Nathan should have recused himself from writing the article?
Someone else probably could have written the article, but it's not really any different than the one that everyone referenced when talking about it. I don't think there was any ill meaning in that. Like I said, the article that everyone looked at came out on the same day, talks about the same stuff, talks about the jam, and it's a matter of timing. It's because that's when the news broke.
Okay. Are you familiar about the Fine Young Capitalists website?
This I don't know about, and I have not looked into, so I can admit to that.
Okay, I'll go over it pretty quickly, because I have to catch up on it. I'll catch up to speed. So the Fine Young Capitalists was a website of female game developers that was set up with a pretty cool mission when you think about it, and they actually have a Kickstarter now. So the mission of the Fine Young Capitalists is they are a group of female game developers, indie game developers. And what they do is they go out and they sort of mine for ideas, for game concepts from women, because they want more women developing games. And so they'll come to you and say, okay, we're going to... I think the public votes on the idea of the best game to develop. So what the deal was going to be was that if I come to you an idea, I'm not a game developer. Pretend I'm a woman, and you're a woman developer with this Final Capitals. I come to you, I have a game idea. It wins out. I come to you, I work with the graphic artist and the development team to develop the concept. At that point, of course, I'm not a developer. I'm done with it at that point. Your team develops it. Now, the deal that was put on the table originally, which was asked Zoe Quinn, hey, do you want to be a part of this, is that the person that comes with the idea gets 8% of the profits. The team then gets all of the profits from the game, and it goes to charity. So on paper, it looks like this is actually not a bad idea, because, hell, if you have an awesome idea but don't know how to develop games, what are you going to do with that idea? You're going to do absolutely nothing with it. So they asked Zoe Quinn, and publicly on Twitter, Zoe Quinn basically trashed this website. Absolutely trashed it. The tweets are still out there.
On what grounds?
Because she thought it was like enslavement of women, basically. She trashed it. A little over the top. The whole point is this, is that she trashed this website, and now they're actually with a Kickstarter now getting started with this idea. Not only was it not reported at the time that this happened with Zoe, and Zoe was one of the biggest female indie developers, correct? Would you give me that? She's known, even before this, she was known.
She's out there.
Okay. So it was not reported by any website that this happened originally, that this trashing of this pretty good idea happened. I have not seen any major website report on this Kickstarter with the Fine Young Capitalists trying to get this actually going again with a Kickstarter. I have seen no reporting on it from any major website. Now, if you want to say that's, again, a coincidence, you can say that. But the fact of the matter is we know that there's an incestuous relationship between these game developers and people at the websites. So again, it's not just favoritism for good press. It can be your enemies not getting any sort of publicity, or maybe your other friend on the side that you know may be getting publicity. The whole point is, the entire thing stinks on totally different levels. It stinks on the fact that it shows that gaming journalism is still in its infancy. It hasn't matured to anywhere near what you want to say the fourth estate, back in, the 60s and 70s, how, news reporting was, a guy with a clock behind him and it was, make sure you vest your sources. It's not even near that at this point. And I think unfortunately, you have awful people threatening bad things to people because they're fucking assholes and they're whack jobs. We have that here. This is also an important issue here that we can discuss too. And unfortunately, that's getting mixed together. And if you can separate them, I think we'd have a much better discussion about each of them separately and what to do about each of those.
Sure. Here's basically the last thing I will say on this. The incestuous nature of not incestuous, but the close-knit nature of games journalists and games developers is always going to create problems. Okay? It's always going to create problems. But games journalism has never been particularly great. Okay? We can agree on...
Oh, yes.
We can agree that games journalism has never been particularly great. I am entirely uncomfortable having a discussion suddenly, again, about games journalism being crap and needing to be monitored when it starts with rape and murder threats against a woman who just had her public life leaked on the internet. Is it worth talking about games journalism? Yes, not in this context, because it's lazy to fall back on game. Why is it lazy to fall back on it? Because you can talk about this at any time of the year. Games journalism isn't magically just crap right now.
You can, but you never have scandals like this, quote unquote scandals that are sort of thrust into the limelight.
Like
I see your point. This is important to talk about without this happening. But the fact of the matter is, when something like this happens, it puts the focus on this. Like when there's a mass, you can talk about gun violence and gun control anytime you want. But when there's a shooting in a school, now we talk about it because now it's on everyone's mind. Yeah, that's basically what it is.
This is not a school shooting.
I understand that, but I'm trying to make the analogy of when something like this gets thrust into the public limelight, you're going to talk about it because it's there. You're not going to ignore it. That's all I'm saying. We're not going to agree on sort of this, but but at least we had a reasonable discussion. And we heard each other out. That's what's important about it. And and here's the thing about a rational discussion, and because I've seen internet quote unquote celebrities, Phil Fish, people at this is what I didn't even talk about this. People that are actually in charge of gaming journalism websites actually taking sides, which is insane to think about, that journalists would actually take sides in an issue because that's not their job. But whatever. The fact of the matter is that on Twitter, you can't have a rational conversation about anything in 140 characters or less. You just can't. It's not built for that.
Well, no one's trying to have a rational discussion about it in avenues where they can have more than 140 characters. But I still think
we're not having a rational conversation.
No, we are.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about like blogs articles.
Okay.
I still think the problem for a lot of people is that I don't buy, and a majority of people don't buy, especially if you followed Zoe Quinn's career. And like I said, I know of her from Twitter. I know of her from people I know, but I do not buy that this is about games journalism. I buy that as a flimsy crutch that they're using to hold themselves up on.
For everyone or for some people?
I'm not gonna say that about you, but I am gonna say for most people.
Okay. I don't like blanket statements, but that's your viewpoint. I disagree with it, but all right.
Okay, so
video games, yay!
Yeah.